Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of PHT TV. Over the last few weeks, excluding last week's Jubilee history video, over the last few weeks we have unboxed the entire PerListen 5.1 system. We unboxed the S7t towers, we unboxed the S7C center channel, we unboxed the S4S surrounds, and we unboxed the D215s subwoofer. The ultimate goal was to get to a point where we could do some listenings and some reviews, and here we are. So today we'll be doing a 2-channel and a 2.1 listening experience. Next week we want to get into the full 5.1 setup. So I'll be adding the center channel and surrounds into the mix and setting up kind of a makeshift movie theater to get the full experience. I'll be testing a full 5.1 setup with music, movies, even Dolby demos, as well as video games. So I'll be getting the full experience to let you know exactly what I think. So I will be listening, and then I will come back to provide a review immediately afterwards. Due to it being a recording, all speakers are guaranteed not to be reproduced accurately. So we've decided to kind of nix these ideas all together, and we'll be listening and coming back to provide a review immediately afterwards. All of the tracks I listen to will be provided in the description, so you guys can listen along, check that out as well. A couple of final thoughts before we begin. First off, what is powering these and what is the source? Only the best. Only the cleanest. My source is a Bluesound Node 2i. It's connected to the PerSound P6 preamplifier through digital optical connection. From there it goes out to the PerSound JC5 power amplifier through XLR cables, and then out from there to the speakers. For those of you that have asked about the connection process of putting together separates, I've actually recorded myself hooking this setup up. So that will be released on a future Tech Tuesday episode, so if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button below and click the bell next to it in order to enable notifications. Not only is this going to let you know as soon as this and other new videos are released, but it'll also be the first step to put you in line for any contests and giveaways that we have here on PHT TV. I'm also going to put a link in the description to that connection video as soon as it becomes available. So if you don't see it there, it's not ready yet, but it'll be coming soon. Lastly, as another side note, I have had these speakers for about a month now, and I have been dying to listen to them, and I've restrained. I want to give this review immediately following hearing them for the first time. I'm excited, guys. This is the first time I will be hearing these speakers. The next time you hear my voice, there's a possibility I will be a changed person. Maybe not that far. But anyways, I'm gonna take some notes as I go along. It may seem like a split second, but I'll probably be gone for an hour or two, and I'll be right back to tell you what I think. So let's do this. All right, so I did take notes while I was doing this whole thing, and first off, I'm gonna give you some notes on the 2-channel setup without the sub. So first off, I've got stereo separation. The first track on my list is not there for overall quality. It's there for stereo separation. The bleed that you get from some of the speakers on the market today it's not great. So the separation in this system is immaculate. I don't know how to put it in words except to say that everything is exactly where it should be. Not just left to right, it's where it should be in the room, which that's gonna kind of bring me to soundstage. So I'm first and foremost a home theater guy. Some of you guys may know this. Almost every room in my house, there's a 5-channel or more setup. That's because I have found that I am always missing something otherwise. I'm gonna preface this by saying I already have the S4s mounted on the wall for next week's video. I have them ready to go for the 5.1 setup, but they are not connected to anything. But they are mounted on the wall, so they were just to my left and right as I'm doing this listening experience. The reason I mention this is I had to get up to check if they were playing. The depth that these S7Ts produced, I legitimately questioned if something somehow was coming through these speakers. I felt fully enveloped in the stage with just the S7Ts. Some of the instruments felt right in my face, some felt 20 feet back from where the speakers are set. This whole set, this seemingly magical array, it just blew me away. Now, as far as tone goes, tonally everything felt super natural. These had no trouble reproducing anything on the spectrum. Not only anything on the spectrum, but anything on the spectrum effortlessly and simultaneously and at any volume. I want to say something about how the low frequencies really shine, or the mid-range on these will really blow everything else on the market away, or that the high frequency is like nothing else I have ever heard. I just can't specify like that because there isn't more focus on one way or the other. There isn't more focus on one frequency or the other. There's an equal and insanely impressive amount of detail in every frequency. And like I said before, not only is it natural and simultaneous, it all feels effortless from these speakers. Virtually no distortion. I noticed virtually no distortion in the entirety of my listening, and the level seemed to have no impact on its ability to reproduce. It was amazing that at whisper volumes, I could still hear all of the subtleties and nuances in the recordings, and the low frequencies were still there. They were still present at those same whisper volumes. I did crank these guys up as well, so at screaming volumes, I noticed that the high frequencies were still super crisp and still super present right off the bat, and continually throughout my listening, I noticed that I wasn't missing any bass. I was super amazed by their ability to reproduce low frequencies, especially at low volumes. As a 2-channel system, I was expecting to be left wanting, and I was not. Now that said, I've got the sub. I promised you guys a 2.1 review as well, so let's fire up this sub and see what it brings us. This thing had the room shaking. It took the whole listening experience just to the next level. I actually had to flip it back and forth a couple of times, and the difference somehow is, it's weird. It's intense, but it's subtle at the same time. Like it was supposed to be there. I just didn't know it until that moment when I flipped the switch back on. It's a super strange feeling, and I really don't know how to describe it. So essentially what I did is I turn on the sub and I love its presence, but then I turn it back off and I'm still happy with just the S7Ts. I feel like I'm not missing anything from the solo towers, but then I turn it on and I'm still amazed. So I really don't know how to describe this feeling. I feel like it speaks a lot to the blending of the system itself. It kind of perfectly takes over and does exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm kind of in awe, guys. This system is amazing. This listening took significantly longer than I expected. I'm kind of addicted. I just want more. I'm 100% gonna end this video and go listen to these guys some more. So comment below, tell me what movies and video games I should watch and what I should play to do this test. I'm debating going old school, maybe some Jurassic Park, maybe some, I don't know, I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy in a while. Not necessarily old school, but that'd be kind of a fun test. For playing, maybe some Fallout. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of PHT TV.
I was trying to figure out how exactly I could tell you guys what I thought about these speakers, which are amazing by the way, but in a halfway interesting format. So, you know, I thought about Steve Gutenberg. I can't be quite as eccentric as him. I'm weird, but not quite on that level. Who else? Andrew Robinson. Man, that guy's so handsome. I'm sorry, but he could just stare at a speaker and you guys would love it. So I can't hang with those guys, but what I can do is go through my track list. So basically I have a super secret list of about 50 songs, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I listen to them and, you know, what parts of the song I listen for. Now, these PerListens really surprised me. You know, I try to go to as many shows as I can. I've heard $1 million speakers. You know, of course, I'm a dealer for Clips, SVS, Q Acoustics. I mean, I've heard quite a bit. So, it's not quite my first favorite rodeo. You know, I am from Kentucky, but I have heard some nice stuff. So that being said, they really truly surprised me, especially on some of these songs. I'm just going to go down through the list. Generally speaking, though, what I was really surprised about is the instruments. So basically, you know, I've been a musician for as long as I can remember, on and off at least, for fun, not on any professional level. acoustic guitars in particular is something I think they're magical listening to. I think everybody does. So those really impress me. Some of your female vocals, which I got a couple on my list. I mean, there's a few that just sound absolutely angelic, but the problem is, you know, they sound nice on most everything. So some of the voices, especially upper female vocals, didn't stand out as much, but drums and guitars. Drums are absolutely insane on PerListen, and what shocked me about that was just the transients, the way they can ramp up. I've got a couple of tracks, you know, Dave Matthews in particular, that they go from 0 to 100 real quick, as the saying goes. So I was truly shocked about those. Also, like I said, acoustic guitar, just the micro details that are available when you listen to these. I mean, I've tried to take care of my hearing. I wear earplugs even when going down the road. I don't want to lose my hearing. I can hear pretty faint stuff. So when I hear a familiar recording and I hear super faint details that I've never noticed before, I don't think that's my imagination. So that's what surprised me about these. Even at low levels, super faint. I call them micro details, for lack of a better word. I'm sure there's some kind of fancy audiophile term, but maybe they use that. I don't know. So anyways, here is the list. These are my favorite songs for demo purposes. And one thing that may stand out is, you know, I try to sell based on emotion, which should be pretty obvious. But, you know, some of these audiophile type of guys, they want to, you know, they want to demo with piano music and whatever. I'm going to show you some 90s rock. I mean, just because that's just not me. I can, you know, you come visit my store, I'm likely to be wearing camo shorts and drinking a beer and, you know, listening to some Nirvana or something. So I call myself the fake audiophile. So anyways, hang on a second. I do have notes for these, so I apologize for that. But my all-time favorite, especially for PerListen, Eric Mongrain, the song called Fearless. So this thing is absolutely nuts. You know, if you listen to it on the surface, I mean, it's a pleasant song, period. If you listen to it on the surface, it's going to be pleasant. You listen to it on your car, it's still going to sound cool. Where the PerListen shines, can't even talk, is the micro details I'm talking about. So it literally sounds like your head is 2 feet away from the guy's guitar. So when you're playing an acoustic, you know, one thing that drives me crazy about acoustic recordings that you hear a lot with Jimmy Buffett type of stuff is that when he used the piezo pickup on the things, it just neuters it. Now, I don't know what kind of recording that Eric uses, but it is absolutely magical. Every little detail shows up, every little squeak. And when I say squeak, I don't mean like, you know, some players are like, do, squeak. It's just so loud. It's like fingernails on the chalkboard to me. Your good players, especially your high-end classical players, they're going to go out of their way to minimize that. So, I mean, your good players, you shouldn't hear. I mean, crappy players, that real annoying squeaking is I feel like it's the fool's version of a realistic recording. I hate it myself. But when you've got a recording that is from a high-end player like that, and he is obviously minimizing that, and you can still hear the little bitty metallic shimmering against the frets and things like that, it's really, really cool. So Eric Mongrain, Fearless. If nothing else, look up that song. My friend Stephen Dew that works with me showed it to me. Been in love with it ever since. So I'll try to not talk quite so much on these other songs. So Alison Krauss, Down to the River to Pray. So, of course, she just repeats the same thing over again, but the vocals, if you're looking for angelic female vocals, that's a good one. Mayonnaise by the Smashing Pumpkins. I'm a 90s kid, you know. I was 16 in 1992, so you know, the whole 92 to 95, all that alternative music is what's in my heart. I absolutely love that. I love the guitar on it. I love Billy's voice. That one in particular has got some cool history, because that swishing effect is not an effect pedal. It's actually, he found this broken guitar from a pawn shop for like $50 or something, and it made that swishing noise, and he just had to have it. That's not an effect pedal. So Miss Ohio by Gilliam Welch. I think that's Gilliam. I think that's how you would say it. Anyways, so this is like the opposite of an angelic female voice recording. It sounds like she was rode hard and put up wet. Just really rough. You can really tell the years in her ears. Super realistic. I heard it at on a $70,000-$80,000 pair of speakers at the Rocky Mountain Audio Fest. I've been using it ever since. I love the string instruments on that particular recording, but her voice is just, oh my goodness, it sounds like you're there, and it sounds just super realistic. I don't know how else to say it. And the PerListens just really make her voice really come out, and it doesn't mask it whatsoever. It's just raw, it's real. I absolutely love it. Midnight in Harlem, Tedeschi Trucks Band. This is my ultimate demo song for multiple reasons. I think it's hard to pull off. This is another one of those songs where it's going to sound pleasant no matter what. You put it in your car, it's going to sound pleasant. You put it on some mellow sounding speakers, it's going to sound pleasant. Doesn't necessarily sound real though. The problem, I think, is that Susan Tedeschi's voice is real low and gruff in this particular recording. So I'm going to call out some old Cornwalls. Cornwall 3s, for example. They were fun, but they're also kind of bloated and colored in the mid bass. So her voice does not sound realistic on those. So that's what I'm listening for. I'm listening for the bloated mid bass, the bloated Susan voice in here. The PerListens just super neutral. I was shocked. It sounds very nice on these. But the other part, on the flip side, is Derek's guitar. So if you're a guitarist, about the only way to describe his tone, especially on a song like this, is that it has a bite to it. And if you heard him live, that would be apparent. You would know what the word bite means. So his solos, his riffs in that song is going to sound pleasant no matter what. It's not going to sound like he does live. So listen to him live, and it's just, it just grabs you by the throat. I don't know how to describe it whatsoever. Bite. That's how everybody describes it. So these things, there's not all speakers, especially mellow sounding speakers, are going to be able to pull this off. But the PerListens are one of those that are just super realistic when his solo comes on, especially towards the end. So Natalie Merchant, I use the songs Carnival, Wonder, and Jealousy. Of course, this is kind of a more mature type of respectable music. Almost anybody likes it, okay? There's one in particular, the Jealousy. I'm not a super big fan of the original recording. It's a pleasant song, but she re-recorded it, remastered it. Later on, there's a entire album full of that stuff. Jealousy is a super pleasant song to use. It's got a nice saxophone intro, so if you're looking for audiophile and type of elements and different instruments and just a more respectable type of thing than the rap and everything else that I use, that's a good collection. Going to Carolina, James Taylor. This ought to be a given. His voice is beautiful. His acoustic guitar recording is beautiful. This is actually one of my late dad's favorite songs, so I tend to play that a lot just in his memory. So Rodrigo y Gabriela, two of my favorites. Tamakun, the Soundmaker. This is one of those I use as an emotional basis. It just makes make people get up and dance. Not much else to say to it. Makes almost any speaker sound just super fun, and that's what we're after here. It's fun. PerListen didn't disappoint, but again, it's one of those that it really sounds good on almost anything, so you can't go wrong with it. My Lovely Man by the Chili Peppers. So this is one of Rick Rubin's masterpieces. What I love in this recording is the snare drum. It's fairly isolated. It's on a fairly, how should I say it? The soundtrack is not too busy. When that snare hits, man, it's like a gunshot. And when you crank that up, I mean, it ought to feel like that snare is just in the room with you. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a small room that has no acoustic panels with an actual snare, but like I hit you like a gunshot. It's about the only thing that I can describe it as. So when I listen to the song, I crank it to high heavens, and I want to feel like that snare is right there with me. So, you know, there are a couple other things. I do like Flea's bass guitar. It's got a nice growly tone, but I don't particularly like the vocals in this. Once you crank it up, there's a lot of sibilance, which can get annoying. So that's just me, but the snare is second to none on this. Taylor Swift, This Love. So I joke that I try to trap people. I get people who like 70s music and I sneak Taylor Swift in there. So basically, Taylor on this song, it just makes people just shut up and they're like, whoa, what's that? So that's not a very well-known song of hers. It's not played on the radio a lot, so people don't recognize it. And then, you know, later they'll figure out it's Taylor Swift, and of course they want to say they don't like it. But I can tell you for sure, people shut up and listen when you play that song. Ryan Adams. I don't know how to pronounce this. There's La Cienega. Just Smile. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm from Kentucky. I apologize. This is one of my favorite songs. Basically, in the same manner as Susan Tedeschi, he's got a low, somewhat almost crackling, sorrowful sound to it, and I think it's hard to pull off. It's easy for it to sound bloated. So if Ryan sounds like he's in the same room, like the PerListens make, you know, that's a good speaker, and these do. Same thing, if I figured out people like Ryan Adams and they want something else, there's a song called Come Pick Me Up. It's got a wordy dirt or two, so you know, people have to overlook that, but it is a real pleasant song. Post Malone, Better Now. So I basically just use that for showing off bass response. There's a fun little intro, but when the bass hits, it's actually really low. So I like to surprise people by putting it on speakers that they don't think can thump, and I'll crank the bass knob to high heavens. And I was surprised. You know, I was a little skeptical after seeing some of the PerListen responses, because you know, it basically hits 80 hertz and it's flat to 80, but after that, at least on the graphs, it starts tapering off, and I was expecting that song for them to just be flapping in the wind, but you could tell, I mean, that's at least close to 20 something hertz on that song, and you know, for those woofers to hit that and not sound like they were about to blow up was really surprising to me. Paul Simon, Diamonds on the Soles of His Shoes. This is one of my favorite demo songs. It's an older song. Everybody loves it. I'm listening for the drums, first of all, but also the male harmonies when it starts up during the intro. Absolutely lovely. I usually save that song for the Las Scalas. They're like the king of the mid bass. For 70 hertz to 250 hertz is absolutely magical, about the cleanest you're going to hear. So for me to put that song on the PerListens and hear those harmonies as clean as what I'm used to, holy cow, that was amazing. But also, like I said, PerListen is really shocking when it comes to drums. So all the little drum fills in between each verse, or whatever you call it, that was just the transients, the attack from those toms was just super fun. So Nirvana, Lithium. I have a love-hate relationship with this song because I don't particularly like the chorus, because it just cranks it to high heavens. It sounds like a garage band. But in between, man, that clean guitar, it's one of those, it ought to sound like it's in the same room. And the PerListens did not disappoint. Just super clean, super sparkly, you know, and you've got Kurt's voice, which is in all its glory on top of that. I absolutely love that song for demo. Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I mean, this is just kind of a fun song if you want to get loud, but what I'm listening for on this song is there's a couple of kick drum flurries, which I've heard speakers that can turn that into an absolute sloppy mess, and I hate it. So if I want to show people just how tight that a kick drum flurry can be, you know, I'll put that in, I'll crank up the bass knob. So Layla, Eric Clapton, not necessarily my favorite song, but if you get somebody in there who is, you know, big 70s rock fan, which surprisingly, the people who come by for demos, 80% of them are 70s rock fans. So I feel like the Eric Clapton Unplugged is something that you can't ignore. So I picked Layla, just, I happen to like that song, but that whole album is very nice, to be honest. One of my favorites in terms of female vocals is actually Katie Melua, I think that's how you pronounce it, with Eva Cassidy. What a Wonderful World, especially the first verse. Oh my goodness, it's just, I mean, it sounds like the sirens are singing as the, what's that movie? Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's absolutely heavenly, angelic. I mean, I haven't run across it while streaming. I'm surprised more people don't talk about it, but that is absolutely lovely. So Tool, I don't even know how to pronounce this. 7-pist, I don't know, 7-impist, whatever. Song absolutely ripped your head off, which the PerListens really surprised me. So to be that finesse and all those micro details and be able to absolutely just rip your head off when, you know, almost 2 minutes come up and he's like, here we go again. I mean, I had those things cranking, they did not disappoint. So the whole Dominus spec, that's not bullcrap. I mean, they can fill a big room and they can do it very loudly. Trust me on that. 10,000 watts, Ultra 5 band. This is kind of a cookie cutter blues rock song, but you know, certain people I can tell that they would like it, so I'll put that in. We'll crank it up. Nothing particularly audiophilish about it, but it is fun. A lot of people really like it, and it's something new. Most people have never heard of that band before. So Altered 5 Blues Band, look them up. They're lots of fun. Small band from up north central, somewhere around North Dakota, or I don't know, somewhere up there. Minnesota, I don't know. Money for Nothing, Dire Straits. This is like the epitome of, I mean, how do you have a stereo shop and not play this song? So this was actually the first song I ever heard on a home stereo. I went to Risley's in Madisonville, Kentucky when I was 14 years old in a small room. This guy cranked it up, and in my life had never been the same ever since. So anytime somebody comes over, I try to reproduce that same thing. I don't know if people appreciate it or not. Maybe they'll be cussing me afterwards because they can't hear, but hopefully I can pass the torch down to some poor soul. Some kid comes in there unsuspecting and changes life, who knows. Dido, thank you. Of course, this song became famous because Eminem actually sampled it. What was it, Stan? So everybody ran out and tried to find Dido. Of course, when they did, they figured out that that song is kind of in a totally different, he framed it in a different way. She tried to make it lovely and, you know, an ode to her lover in a positive way, and he took it, and the way he framed it sounded obsessive. So super interesting the way that they took the exact same thing and flipped it like that. But I love her voice. I love the little bongos. I've been listening to that ever since it came out. So Dave Matthews, number 41, and Say Goodbye, especially the intro to Say Goodbye. I absolutely love the drums on this, especially on that intro. Just being a lot of the drums, especially with rock, it's over the canvas of a really noisy background. I like this because it's mostly silent except for flutes, and you can really appreciate those transients. And this song in particular, I mean, the PerListen sound better than pretty much anything I've heard, especially with those woofers up high. I mean, those toms are right there in your face. Just the dynamics is just absolutely amazing on those things. Genesis, Hold on My Heart. So basically, this is the first song I ever heard in the stereo that I had installed in my car. We stayed up half the night, me and my dad. We put it all in, and when it was finished, that was the first song I heard. So I always play that. Good memories behind it. I used it for demo purposes for quite a while, so I probably have more memories associated with. But the whole album, We Can't Dance by Genesis, the mid-range is absolutely amazing. So I'm surprised that so many people want to overlook that album. Jack Johnson, Flake and Bubble Toes. Bubble Toes in particularly, you know, it's a silly song, but it's also stripped down, and it also, realistically speaking, that's another one of those where very minimal processing, but those drums ought to sound like they're in the same room. So I just love it for that. I think good songs should be able to be stripped down, shouldn't have to have a bunch of processing and 52 tracks, and you know, I'd like Jack Johnson because it's just good, simple, clean, fun. Funk 49, James Gang. This happens to be my dad's favorite songs. I grew up rocking out to that. There's nothing particularly audiophilish about it, but you know, a lot of people appreciate it. Same thing with Time with Pink Floyd. Pretty much the same story as Funk 49, but I will say, just the intro here, and again, going back to these micro details, just the shimmer alone from those chimes going off was just something new. I'm not used to hearing that much detail behind something as simple as a chime. So that alone was just fascinating to me. Everlong acoustic, you know, this is just another one of those stripped down, Dave and his guitar, minimal processing, you know, at least theoretically, it ought to sound like Dave's just sitting there in the room with you. I use Pixies, Where's My Mind? Nothing super audiophilish about this, except I do love the drums, the bass drum in particular. So what a lot of people don't understand, you know, when I say I like Flea's bass guitar, or you know, or if I like the bass drum on this, a lot of people don't understand that bass definition actually comes from mid-range integration. Let's say it again. Bass definition comes from mid-range integration. So what does that mean exactly? Well, a lot of people think that, you know, speed of your subwoofer or whatever is where your bass definition comes from. I don't agree. I think that when you hear a bass drum, you know, basically that thing starts at about 2 kilohertz. There's a lot of energy in the mid-range, but it follows up with that deep thud that's real low. Most of it's centered, what, 60, 65 hertz? But with modern recordings, it can dip down to more like 20. And if all of those drivers aren't in sync and time aligned and everything else, you know, you can tell it's a drum, but it doesn't sound full, it doesn't sound real, it doesn't sound detailed. Same thing with bass guitar. You know, a lot of people think, oh, bass guitar, that's, you know, open E, what is that, 41, 42 hertz, open B is 29, so they think all your definition comes from your subwoofer. That's not really the case, though. I mean, bass guitar has scads and scads of detail in the mid-range. You know, most of your energy is actually your first harmonic, you know, 100-something hertz, between 1 and 200 hertz, but it all goes, bass guitar is basically one of the few instruments that can play almost the entire, everything that you can hear. It can go from 29 hertz all the way up past 10 kilohertz. And I absolutely love listening to, you know, the drums, especially the bass drums and the bass guitar on the PerListen, just because everything is so in sync. It just sounds real. It sounds like it's there. It doesn't sound like, you know, different drivers potentially working against each other. It just sounds like a band right there in front of you. It's just absolutely amazing. So know how Young MC, this goes back to just playing off emotions. I like playing is, it makes people smile. If you remember this, I think this is the one that showed up in Baby Driver, which this is actually the first album that I bought specifically for bass reasons. I was 12 years old. We had an Isuzu Trooper that had 6-inch woofers in the back, and my neighbor across the road was 16 and he got some subwoofers, and he was like a big brother to me. So I instantly got obsessed by bass. By the time I was 12 years old, that, you know, crap, that was, feel old, that was well over 30 years ago at this point. But I bought that specifically for the bass. I'd sit in our Trooper, I memorized every single word. I'd crank the bass up and just thump along to Young MC, which I love it because it's so clean. You know, he says damn or something, you know, once or twice in the whole album, but otherwise it's just thoughtful lyrics. But when it came on Baby Driver, I was just like ready to jump for joy. You know, it was just like seeing an old friend out of the blue. I absolutely loved it. So when I play that, I'm just trying to elicit that same response. Hopefully somebody one of these days appreciates it. You know, I'm sure your 70 rock guys do not, but they can deal with it, can't they? Dear Chicago, Ron Adams, same as before, just, I love his voice, real low. Real mature recording, lots of emotion. Jeff Buckley, Hallelujah. I love this recording because of the guitar, especially the intro. Holy cow. Listen to that. Just pay attention. So just the brightness and the sparkle of that clean channel on the guitar on those PerListens is just out of this world. You got to hear it. This is another one. It's going to sound pleasant no matter what, but these things are something else. Eric Clapton, Record Year. You know, a lot of people like country. I just happen to like that one because I can rock out to it. So I got to make the country fans happy somehow. There's nothing much to say that otherwise. Sail, AWOL Nation, the ultimate snowboard video. So many snowboard so many videos have been made with that in the background. It's just makes you feel epic, makes you feel bulletproof. And I'm sure it's totally fake. I'm sure that the bass drum is 100% fake, but they do sound super cool. And a lot of speakers struggle because when that bass drum hits, first of all, going back to the mid-range integration, it just sounds, you know, a lot of speakers just sound like a big low thud. There's a lot more going on than that big low thud. And there's a lot of, you know, it sounds, like I said, I'm sure it's fake, but it sounds like the skin of the beater hitting on a kick drum followed with that thud. And a lot of speakers will just totally wash that away. But they'll also struggle trying to reproduce that low note, especially once you crank it up. I was really surprised how well that the PerListen handled this song in particular with low bass. I wouldn't necessarily buy these particularly for thumping with, but they did not shy away. I was super shocked about that. Angel from Montgomery, Bonnie Raitt. So I'll tell you the backstory on this. You know, of course, I'm a big clip stealer. So Roy Delgado actually uses Bonnie Raitt for testing. So he made a speaker one time and he put Bonnie Raitt in, and he got Bonnie Raitt to sounding very pleasant and very sweet sounding and sounded amazing. And then he heard Bonnie Raitt live and he was like, you know what, Bonnie Raitt doesn't sound anything like what I thought she did. And he realized that basically he masked everything. You know, what he did to the speakers was masking that low nasty, I don't know if I should use the word nasty, but her voice is very kind of growly, very realistic. You can hear the maturity and years in her voice. It's very real. And he uses it for testing because when a speaker plays her voice, and this goes back to the, you know, one of the first ones I mentioned, you know, the same kind of Gillian Welch. except I think it's even more so with her. You don't want a speaker that masks all that. You want to hear, like, you want to hear the strain and the years in their voice, and that's what Roy Delgado Eclipse uses Bonnie Raitt for that purposes. So that's what I'm listening to, or that's what I'm listening for. John Prine, Lake Marie, Clay Pigeons. Like I said, I got a lot of 70s fans. They absolutely love that. So I just kind of keep it around for that. You know, I do like the vocals, the guitar in Clay Pigeons. Clay Pigeons in particular is a very emotional song. Usually people just shut up and listen as soon as it comes on. It's just like they're transported into a different reality almost. Most people, you know, you can tell that they kind of enjoy what's listening, but you play Clay Pigeons and it's like, whoa, what? Like they just stop. Like you could see their brains start thinking in a different way. So I always throw that in there to mix things up and watch people's reactions. So you guys are gonna laugh at this. Big Punisher, Not a Player. It's absolutely awful recording, harsh vocals, but it's a feel-good song if you're like me and you grew up around 90s hip-hop. It's just like you want to get up and dance. You feel good. That's what sells speakers. I'm sorry, but you know, that's what I use it for. Niles Lofgren. So I'm going to start with Wonderland. This is one of those, you can really hear the micro details in his guitar. The other one that is from Niles Lofgren is Keith Don't Go. Both of these, especially Keith Don't Go in particular, sounds jaw-dropping amazing. You know what the problem is though, is it sounds jaw-dropping amazing on absolutely everything. You can go to a show and half the people there are playing Keith Don't Go. It's just kind of ridiculous. Like, it sounds cool, but for demo purposes, for test purposes, like unless somebody has absolutely never heard it before, like what exactly is the point here? So I don't know, that's just my personal opinion. So Atmosphere, Guarantees. This is a rap song, but it's another one of those that the intro is just super realistic, clean channel of the guitar. You can even slightly hear the amp humming on the PerListens, which I've heard speakers that just absolutely mask that. It just sounds like it's in the room. That's what a guitar sounds like on the clean channel. So for them to pull that off, I really like that recording. Plus, it's a sobering, very emotional song. You kind of gotta have like rap to be into it, but I like rap and I love that song. So, The General by Dispatch. This is like an ultimate campfire song. So if you're drunk with your buddies and you know how to play acoustic guitar, and if you're one of those pretentious guys that are gonna bring an acoustic guitar to campfire and make everybody else listen, you at least got to know this song. So it's kind of hard to pull off because the rhythm is going against the vocals. You know, if you're a player, it's just singing and actually playing that is a super hard song to pull off. I can play it, I can't sing it at the same time, but it's just, you know, minimal processing, super low key, super fun song. Wildflowers and Wine by Mitch King. So this is one of those. Mitch King is very soulful, okay? He looks like he shouldn't be allowed anywhere near, you know, musician setup. He looks like the anti-musician if you go by what's on TV, but his vocals is just super soulful. I don't know how else to describe it, but his guitar playing, you know, one of his songs, he had a mini concert with an acoustic, and one of my favorite comments was when he started up, he's like, well, I'm not much of an acoustic player, you know, he likes electric, I guess. And one of the comments in YouTube was like, well, he says that, and I'm over here thinking, is that guitar 18? I mean, I thought it was humorous at least, because he absolutely spanked it. He does a really good job. He deserves all the credit in the world. I really love his stuff, so that's always very impressive. This City by Sam Fisher. It's nothing that I would particularly get into. I do like the guitar on the intro, but the U.S. distributor for PerListen is Steve Jane, and basically he loves this song, so he puts it on, you know, if you've got your acoustic set up right, if you've got a nice amplifier, what he's listening for is the snapping, the finger snapping in the background. And it doesn't start up right at first, but when it does, it sounds like somebody's 6 foot away from me snapping. It's like one of the most realistic. All right, 2 more. I promise I'll shut up. So, Mitch King coming back. This is just a super fun song. He really gets to rocking towards the end, having an acoustic playlist. And I guess last but not least is This City by Sam Fisher. Now this one is special because the PerListen US dealer, Steve Jane, which is with Fidelity Imports, this is the one that impressed him the most. So basically, it's got a really pleasant intro, you know, guitar intro. I like that part. What stands out to him is basically the finger snapping. So once the song gets going, you know, you're gonna hear finger snapping in the background. So basically, once you get the acoustics right, once you get a really nice amplifier, that song in particular is supposed to just be absolutely magical in terms of thinking. It sounded like, you know, it sounds like a guy snapping your fingers 6 feet away. And so him and a couple other guys, just super big audio nerds, and they were just totally geeking out over that. So check that one out. Not totally my thing, but they, like I said, they super geeked out over it. So anyways, that's about all I have. You know, we're going to try to compile a Spotify playlist with all of those. We'll post the link. Yeah, and hopefully you enjoy it. But yeah, I use that same song list almost every day. I'm sure that doesn't mean much, but hopefully somebody can appreciate some of them. And yeah, check out the PerListens. You know, at this point, last I checked, there was only 6 of us dealers in the U.S. We've got a pair set up in Paducah, Kentucky. You're welcome to stop by anytime. Like I said before, the biggest strengths of these things, other than just sheer balls to the wall power, which will really shock you from, you know, the tower of that size, is just the finesse, the micro details, the drums that blend everything together, the bass guitar that blends the low bass and the mid-range, you know, all of the micro details from acoustic guitars is absolutely magical. So it was one of those that everybody I've talked to that has listened to a pair, they were literally like going through their playlist trying to find, you know, old favorites and listen to them all over again. So anyways, hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you later. Bye.